Hello and welcome once again to the Gantry TV and indeed the RTA British Touring Car Championship Series. Round 2 here, and we head to Donington Park, and one of the most iconic tracks for British Touring Car Championships. My name is Kevin Galvin, and soon I'll be having a chat with my partner in crime, Evan Dalton. Ronan and Hederman, as ever, doing great work behind the scenes as we continue on in this series, bringing us back to the heritage of British Touring Car Championship. So, we started in Brands Hatch Indy last week. Oscar Mangan and Ronan Doherty putting themselves forward as early championship candidates. Plenty of thrills and spills in these cars, plenty of hip and shoulder action as well, and we expect to see the same across the 3 races this evening. But we are on to race round 2 and to the famous circuit of Donington Park here. Up in the Midlands of the UK, right next to East Midlands Airport, if you know where that is. Of course, some very famous sections of this track, a real kind of flowing track as you come up and over. This time we're racing the GP section. They do race both in British touring cars, but this is the longer GP section, just over 4 kilometers, 12 turns, and a race lap record of 1:17.7 in the Auto GP. That's Kamiya Sato in the Lola B05. Certainly won't be approaching lap times like that. We had our shortest track of the season last week in Brands Hatch Indy. This is one of our longer tracks of the season here at Donington Park. And track temperature of 34 degrees. It's a cloudy day today at Castle Donington. 53% humidity, but a 0% chance of rain, so at least that's one less thing the drivers have to figure out. Evan Dalton, and some early championship contenders already last week.
Yes, some early championship contenders. Hello, Kevin. Hello, everyone watching at home. It was a big week for the returnee, Oscar Mangan. He won 2 of the 3 races and matched his start of his title-winning season back in the Mustang America's Cup. Ronan Doherty was the only one to spoil the party for him, winning in heat number 2. We had 3 cars out the front. Those 2 and Wayne Douglas, who emerged as our front runners. But there's some new names who are quick in practice tonight. Donington always gives a good race in RTA. I'm looking forward to this one.
That should be a really good one, and what was a momentous week for Irish motorsport. Of course, Alex Dunn getting the country's first ever F2 victory, hearing a Ron Avian play on the podium was quite something. But we're in the tin tops tonight here, and we're just approaching the end of practice, and another legendary character is on top step of the podium at the moment in practice. Peter McCann, who had a very disappointing week last week, Evan. He's top of the pile.
He is top of the pile with a very legitimate lap time of a 1:32.8. The closest to him being 3.9 seconds behind over the course of one lap. That is Dan Mould, who is racing for the first time this season, but was the pace setter in last night's practice session by the tune of almost a second. Dan, a champion in other sim racing series such as the Simulation Racing League, who he's representing tonight. So keep an eye out from him because the pace is looking good. Hopefully for Peter McCann's sake he can repeat a 1:32.8 in qualifying, but I'm not too convinced.
Yeah, Dan is obviously a new name to all of us here, and it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He has been running fast laps, as you say, in that Hyundai, so it will be very interesting to see how he gets on with the top runners here. But certainly splitting 1 and 3rd. But once again, Ronan Doherty and Oscar Mangan, not a huge amount between them. About 0.05 of a second separating our championship 1 and 2 thus far. Let's have a quick look at the championship standings while we're talking about it. We're only a race in, of course, and we still have plenty to look forward to in terms of the rest of the season. But the 2 of them tied on 76 points, so very early doors as well. Robbie Callahan on 68 along with Brandon McGahan, and Wayne Douglas on 67. Despite picking up 15 penalty points, he could be somebody, if he keeps himself clean, that could find himself in amongst the mix. In 6th place, a regular name that we see all the time, Dylan McClements, and in P7, the man who won our driver of the day last week, Evan Walsh, the Clonmel man, on 60 points. Then Keith Stewart in on 52, Conor Mealy on 43, and Sean McGoldrick on 37. And Keith Stewart, his fanboys are present and correct, says Chris Cash on the YouTube chat. So always has a big fan club, Keith, since he's returned back to RTA racing, which is what we love to see. Hello to Johnny Hollywood as well, and Peter McCann dropped in before he set that blistering lap to say hello, so that gives him a good sign. So if you want quicker lap times, it's clearly Evan. All you have to do is to go on our YouTube, subscribe to us, and put in some comments in the chat.
Absolutely. Make sure to comment throughout the race, folks. We're happy to read out all the comments as Kevin has just done. So we'll have a chat with you as we always do. It's good to see the fanboys back in RTA. We kind of lost them all once Lawrence de Salzwa left. So it's great to see Keith bringing a few with them. On our championship standings for this season, returning, some of our older Lawrence de Salzwa era viewers will remember we used to have a B series. We have a B series once again, and it's quite a competitive one. 12 drivers in the B series. I'm going to just read them out quickly for you. We have Dave Collier, Jacob Hobbs, Simon Wall, Finlay Melvin, Andrew Murphy, Phillips, and David Prunty. That is Danny Dempsey in 8, Simon Hutchings, then Emma Dempsey, Nathan Sweeney, and Jamal Gandor. So Kevin, we're not going to have one championship to be decided. We have two.
Yeah, it's great, and it does add an extra interest as we go down through the grid. It's always brilliant to have a B series because, you know, sometimes you can get in a rut of covering the same drivers again and again. The Ronan Dohertys and the Oscar Mangans and the Jason Smiths of this world, and sometimes the likes of Dave Collier or Melvin or even Danny Dempsey or Phillips, and you know, these guys are the backbone of this series, and you know, without them we would have extremely small grids. So it's always brilliant for them to have an interest throughout the season, and to give those guys an opportunity to fight for something of their own without going up against the likes of the 8K rated Oscar Mangan. So yeah, great to see from that perspective, and certainly the B Championship is something we'll be highlighting as we go on. And Evan, it's always good. We just want good storylines as we work through this. So I'm sure, you know, there'll be races where the storyline becomes quite evident in terms of the A Championship, which means then we can focus a little bit more on the B Championship, as our broadcast director Ronan Hederman will be giving us the cameras and give us an opportunity to just focus on different drivers and their story throughout the championship.
Has he always had that on-screen graphics? This is my first time noticing it, but yeah, me and you love a good story, Kevin. I wonder why, but if you are like scarily interested in RTA and remember this rule of the B Series champion not being allowed racing it ever again, that rule has been loosened a little bit, so we have some returning champions of the B Series, just to give us a real good second championship, which I'm sure it will be. But back onto the main championship, and Ronan Doherty quickest on his first lap here. Not quite completed the run just yet, but rounding for the final corner now, picking up a nice slipstream from Robbie Callahan in front. He is going to set the benchmark time here, and it is going to be a 1:37 flat for everyone to beat. McCann can't quite do so. There is a lot crossing the start-finish line now. You can see Dylan McClement's 39 flat. He went much quicker in practice, so that's not a proper time. Dan Mould, a tenth of a second behind Doherty. Sean McClement's 37.8. Kevin Joyce 38.2. So they're all in and amongst it here with the first few laps, but very intriguingly, Doherty quicker than the new prodigy of the championship, Dan Mould.
Yeah, certainly a case of Peter McCant for the car currently in P6, but he will hopefully do that. We have a bit of a jumping around here now. We're looking at Dan Mould, so this is obviously a guy who has had a lot of success this week, Dan Mould, so far. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Jamal jumping in and out, but I do believe that Jamal isn't even on the continent and racing in an area that's, you know, very close to a war zone. So I think we can forgive Jamal some connection issues, even if iRacing mightn't necessarily after a while. Just an update as well on the man in P3 at the moment, 137.8 for Sean McClements. Sean, as we talked about last week, had a really nasty accident on the opening round of the ICCR in Mondello Park, and still managed to recover to race last week, which is a great testament to his character, despite only picking up 2 points over the course of the evening. Niall Doherty, sorry, should I say? I had Neville Smith in my head. Niall Doherty was on to us to say that unfortunately now Sean has a bug and is exceptionally sick, so he's racing once again not at 100%, which shows a massive commitment from Sean. So fair play to him once again for being here, but see his car pulling off into the pits. Um, I think Sean may have to make what would you say, an unscheduled pit stop. We'll just have to see how he gets on tonight. Hopefully everything holds up for him because racing with a bug is, I wouldn't want to race. I mean, I raced with COVID, but I would certainly wouldn't want to race with a stomach bug.
Yeah, he's actually bettered what he told me. He didn't think he'd get 5 minutes into qualifying. He got about 5 minutes and 15 seconds, so fair play to Sean. But if that man didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. And I'm not too sure, who he has to say a few prayers to try and get that to improve. But it's really been horrid luck in terms of racing as of late for Sean McClements. Oscar Mangan, quickest of the bunch, 37 flat. Doherty also on a 37 flat. They had the same time to a tenth of a second in practice. They're tied on point in the championship. I think we have our story. These two are going to be very close.
Yeah, exceptionally close, and Dan is a real shake-up for that as well. As you said, he's only a tenth off, but still plenty of time left in this qualifying. A very long qualifying for these guys, to be fair. 15 minutes is a very generous qualifying time, so yeah, it gives Dan plenty of opportunity to go through. So yeah, this is, you're looking, of course, at the GP section. Let's have a look from a driver's perspective as we take you through a lap of the Donington GP circuit. Dan Mould is the man who is providing that lap for us, and he was quickest. So as you can see, as we come up towards McLean's, this is the right hand. Sorry, it's not McLean's. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm going to leave Evan talk through a lap for a change because I don't have the corner names with me, and Evan knows everything off the back.
So down the corner curves, fourth gear, got to be very careful through here. Just clip that grass curve on the inside, braking for the old hairpin. You're just looking to almost get this as flat as possible. Just lift off and straight back on the throttle. Run it up through Starkey's Bridge, turn number 5, turn number 6, but flat out in any sort of car on this slick weather. Then you're braking on that left-hand board, rotate the car in this corner. Very difficult not to run wide on, and you can see Dan Moll just using all the curve as he heads up to McLean's, turn number 7, rotated in through here, and once again on the throttle very early. That's kind of the theme of this circuit. You really just want to be on the power as quick as possible. Then into on the Starkey, straight up towards the foggy S's. You want to take this as quick as humanly possible without picking yourself up an X track limits penalty. Almost clip those little bollards on the inside of the corner and run all the way down towards the Melbourne hairpin of turn number 10. This is arguably the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit. We saw a lot of dives here in the F4s. We may not see as many tonight in the British Touring Car Championship. Then it's in towards Goodhart's, the final hairpin of the circuit. A real tricky one. It's totally blind on entry, and now you can see the apex hook the steering in right at the last minute. Once again, get the power on nice and early. Short shift up the second gear, flat out towards the start-finish line, and you have yourself a good lap around Donington Park.
Expertly done, Evan, and thank you very much for jumping in there.
Yeah, you threw that one on me.
I did a little bit. I was kind of threw it on myself because we were supposed to go earlier to the lap, and I had the map in front of me, and then didn't. But anyway, it is an iconic circuit, of course, and one that Evan suits these cars so well. It's like, you know, it is a bit like you know, the old cliche of whatever you call it, scone and cream, or you know, cookies on cream. It's one of those classic combinations. Touring cars in Donington Park.
That was okay. Yeah, it is. I arguably think this is a much better track than Brands Hatch for touring cars. I much prefer it, and hopefully the 4.0 kilometer, or sorry, 2.4 miles. We're doing British touring car, I have to say, in old money. Hopefully this circuit provides a good race. It's very fun to hot lap once you nail it. It is very satisfying, but the racing here has always been fantastic, and that's what makes it such a favourite in RTA. I would say it's one of our most raced circuits. We usually take single-seaters around here, so it's great to see the tin tops come along. Jordan Kelly, 4th. He's just jumped himself right up the order. He is in the Audi RS3 tonight. Not a car we saw quick at Brands Hatch. We really saw it dominated by Hyundais and the odd Honda. Oscar Mangan, of course, being that odd Honda. But the Elantra and the Velociter, Hyundai's take on a TCR car have really been the two popular choices, but it's great to see Kelly putting the German manufacturer in amongst the mix.
Oh, I love that RS3 car. I mean, we talked about it before, but have spent many hours in that car going around the Nürburgring in different, either in the Nürburgring 24 hours, where myself and Jack, and I'm not sure if Ronan was involved or not. I don't think so, but definitely myself and Jack. Ronan just told me he hates these things, so I'll make a note not to ask him for this year's Nürburgring 24 hours. But myself and Jack got two consecutive podiums in the last 2 years in this. I finished second 2 weeks ago in the VLN. As well, I love this car. I love the way these drive, and I love some of the OG cars as well. You know, people can kind of get taken away by the shiny new cars that come on the service, but actually, one of the things I really love about iRacing is that, like, they will release cars, but they won't bop the ones that are OG to make people buy the new ones. They'll actually keep the performance of the old ones as well, and for GT aside. But you know, generally, when they release new cars into the game or they update cars, they don't kind of absolutely kill the old ones. Yeah, the RS3 is a superb car. It's good fun to drive. Great in VR. Just there's something about the way the cockpit is constructed makes you really feel like you're actually in the car. A massive mirror on it. If we ever get a look at a gyro camera inside that, it would be great to see Jordan Kelly's um, in onboard cameras, because you can see the length of the mirror almost goes from the driver's side all the way over to the passenger side. It's an enormous mirror. But yeah, so it's a great car. Yeah, you can see it there. Like, literally, it's divided into 4 parts, but all of that is just one massive virtual mirror. Um, yeah, I absolutely love that car, and those air conditioning vents you see on the dashboard are exactly the same as the ones in the real A3. So every time I'm in that car, it makes me feel like I'm back home.
You love getting that iDrive and Audi thing in, don't you, at the end of
It's just because how often do you get to race your own, like, a car that actually looks like your own car?
Very true.
Do you know what I mean?
What? What is that me on the back of Evan Walsh's car? I think it might be. Oh dear. Oh dearie me. I was gonna run through a bit of stats for this Honda Civic, but we've just had Honda's reputation absolutely ruined looking at the back of that car. But anyways, it's the Honda Civic FKA TCR for Evan Walsh. I think we ran through the Audi last week, so we'll run through the Honda now. And this is the great thing about having 4 different type of cars. We get to talk about 4 different type of cars for 4 weeks. It was the second TCR Honda has ever built. It is the shortest, 4.5 millimeters shortest on the grid, and it suits lower speed scenarios. Not necessarily Donington Park. I know you mightn't think it's the quickest circuit in the world compared to Spa and such, but for TCR it is a fairly high speed circuit. It is most agile in the slow corners because of that, very stable over curves and has quite an easy balance, but it does have a slow top speed. So when we do get to the longer straight circuits, the likes of Evan Watts, the likes of Oscar Mangan may struggle in that Honda, but still, fabulous car nonetheless. Great choice.
Yeah, short and with its slow top speed. It's kind of fitting that you're on the back of that car, Evan, I have to say. But
Really?
yeah,
Really? Wow.
it's, it's, it is. It's great to see Bois Motorsport being represented. Of course, you can listen to the podcast. That's not how to take that corner. Tony Stack.
Well done, Tony.
Great to see Bois represented. You can have a listen
Bois
to
Motorsport mentioned, just as someone absolutely obliterates the chicane, doing a lot of work for the brand there, Tony. Thank you.
Well, at least you have a reasonably competent driver in Evan Walsh representing the brand on their actual car. But yeah, I know Sean. I know you interviewed Sean McClements recently for that. So, do people go have a look at that? You can find. I'm sure if you look up Bois Motorsport on Instagram or indeed online, you will find basically the link to that. But yeah, great to see some of these drivers getting on and hearing about their real world racing lives, and it is very interesting to hear Sean's take on that incident that happened at Mondello a couple of weeks ago. So do check that out.
Yeah, Conor Melia is featured as well. obviously on the grid, so I just want to give him a shout out as well because he did do the interview. But that is qualifying complete here, and it is Dan Mould who is quickest by 1/10 of a second. Oscar Mangan in second, and Ronan Doherty in third. Very close to the top though, less than 2/10 of a second separating them. Jordan Kelly third, Dylan McClements in fifth ahead of Robbie Callahan and Brandon McCaughan. Evan Walsh is behind Brandon, and then Keith Stewart with Dara Halley rounding out the top 10. Sean McGoldrick in 11th, Sean McClemens in 12th, and it is Danny Dempsey, Tony Stack, Kevin Joyce, Finley Melvin, Dave Matubi, Peter McCann, Conor Melia, Dave Collier, and then behind Dave we have Simon Hutchings, David Prunty, Emma Dempsey, Jamal Gandor, Phil Upson, and unfortunately no lap on the board for, or there is a lap on the board for Nathan Sweeney, wasn't coming up on my timing screen. So it's going to be Dan Mould and Oscar Mangan side by side into the first corner.
Yeah, Dan breaking the mould, I think it's fair to say, by finding himself up at the front with these two guys. But obviously our two championship leaders, second and third, so it'll be very interesting to see how they deal with the 62 car, because if Dan has a good evening this evening, he'll throw himself right amongst it. And I think rather fitting that Dan, in a British Touring Car Championship, that we have somebody from across the Irish Sea, not St George's Channel, but the Irish Sea, to lead out our grid. So Heat 1 here at Donington Park, as this iconic track and car combo get ready. We have 3 races here for you. Let's get it on.
Yes, here come the start lights then, and it's important Dan gets a good start. He has the inside line. Mangan already pointing his car towards Dan as the 5 lights come on, and we go racing for the Motorsport.ie RTA British Touring Car Championship here at Donington Park. Great launch initially from Jordan Kelly as well, and Ronan Doherty immediately looking to get it in the mix with Oscar Mangan. Doherty down the inside of Oscar. Oscar's going to have to hang it the long way around the outside here and try get the run down the Craner curves, but he will still have the outside line come to the old hairpin. It matters not. Doherty is ahead. Great race start from the Dunloy man, and Jordan Kelly is right on the back of Oscar Mangan as well. All clean through turn number 1 at the front of the grid at least.
Yeah, Peter McCann down to 20th position now, Peter. Bad start for him, and Dara Halley also going off track. 2 of them now battling, and as well Jamal Gandor jumping down, and Finlay Melvin, he's gone down quite a bit. So Peter, from having been top of the practice timing tables not long before the end, now finds himself in 22nd place. It's been a bit of a disaster for the Laois native. Now here is Evan Walsh. He is battling with Keith Stewart. Of course, Keith is, the fan club will be intently tuning in as Conor Melia flashes his lights from behind, as Evans all over the back of that 31 car, but there's only a single file through there as Dan Mould starts to pull away already from the leaders. 6/10 of a second now, and Mould has really jumped straight into it here, Evan.
Yes, he has indeed. Dan Mould is pulling away from Ronan Doherty at the front of this field, and as long as he has clean air and doesn't have to battle, you'd have to fancy him for this one. That's a defensive line from Evan Walsh. That is Tony Stack looking to attack, or as Kevin Joyce, I should say, push to pass. Proper British touring car style as Kevin Joyce gets his way past, as does Tony Stack on Evan Walsh. So Evan Walsh losing positions, going to lose another one here to young Carter, Danny Dempsey. Dempsey for Turn 3 Motorsport down the inside of Evan Walsh, and there's another nudge on the 42. So Evan Walsh is being bumped and banged his way around Donington Park. Here's Keith Stewart looking to get past Sean McClements in towards the old hairpin. 2 Northern Irish men scrapping at it. Stewart has got it done on the brakes. Neat for Keith.
Yeah, Sean could be coming back though, and certainly maybe the bug is helping him in terms of weight reduction. I'm not sure, but Sean is certainly trying his luck now back as we go back. He's up and over the top, and Sean gets it back. Oh, and Keith loses the front, but manages to catch it in the end. I was going to say Evan Walsh has had plenty of battles going back along with Danny's dad, so now finding like father like son, Danny showing no inch and offering no opportunity as Evan tries to switch back now as we go down the main straight now. And we saw Tony Stack taking an alternative line. I suspect he will be a little bit more tidy as we head through the foggy S's for the second time thus far. Evan all over the back of him, so you can see already now a gap appearing there. That is 1.6 seconds between Keith Stewart and Conor Melia, and indeed Sean McClements and Tony Stack 2 seconds. So we have little mini battles that are already starting to emerge, even just 3 minutes into this race so far.
Yes, Robbie Callahan right on the tail of Dylan McClements as well. Dylan, who usually runs fantastic around Donington Park. It's a circuit that really suits his driving style. He's taken wins and
Oh,
poles.
Clements into the pits.
Unfortunately, it's the end of the road, I think, for his brother, who pulls into the pit lane suffering with that illness. And I think that will be it for Sean McClemens potentially in race number 1. Hopefully we get to see him back in race number 2 and 3, which are coming up later on this evening, folks. Evan Walsh once again keeping the stack attack behind, and Tony will have to remain in 12th place. Robbie was attacking Dylan, has had a poor run through turn 1 and 2, and he has Brandon McCaughan hot on his heels. Robbie and Brandon, who had many a battle in the LMP2s and in the single seaters, they're going to battle again here up the hill.
It's cutting out a little bit there, Evan, so it's missed a little bit of that, but Dan Mole still leading here, still by 0.5 of a second. Peter McCann, interestingly, the lap previous also pulled into the pits, so we've had a couple of retirements already. Dara Halley joined them as well. Peter didn't retire, he's gone back out on track, but I wonder, did he pick up some serious damage that forced him into the pit lane here at Donington Park? It isn't the worst pit lane in the world, it has to be said, but at least one of the McClemens is still out there repping team DDR, and of course Ronan in second position. Still hasn't got the livery sorted though, Ronan, in that Honda, so I think some work for him to do. But Dylan repping the DDR colours, which is actually really nice change from them. A lot of kind of pastel colours going on here for the DDR car, which looks very well on this Hyundai. Robbie Callan sporting, as ever, the tricolour. That seems to be his trademark, and the most patriotic man on the circuit, I think it's fair to say. As we look at Jamal Gandor going down the inside of both Simon Hutchins and David Prunty. So the 961 car getting it done. He had connection issues earlier on, but he's managing to get it done. And of course, remember, we have a B series going on at the moment, so Dave Collier leading that ahead of Jacob Hobbs, then Simon Wall, Finlay Melvin, Andrew Murphy, David Prunty, Danny Dempsey, Philip Upson, Simon Hutchings, Emma Dempsey, Nathan Sweeney and Jamal Gandor. So Jamal was bottom last time, but he's making up some serious ground as that's contact between Kevin Joyce and Dave Collier, and Kevin's going to try and get past here. See what the stewards have to say about that, because he did get a bit of a bump. In the background is Kevin Joyce waiting to pounce in that Audi livery. Dave eventually making the move stick, but it was on Danny Dempsey, actually. My apologies. I thought it was Dave Collier on Danny Dempsey, not Kevin Joyce on Dave Collier. But yeah, Danny getting a bit of a bump in the back there and pushing him off track. So expect to see a fairly robust reply from the number 11 car.
Yes, but he's going to have to wait, because there goes Kevin Joyce. Very nicely done on the brakes from Kevin. Got that one stopped, and Danny runs wide again. Simon Hutchings swoops up the inside, so that's 3 positions lost in 1 lap for Danny Dempsey. He's going to get the elbows out and fight it back. Simon, I think, might have cut the chicane there, and he's just handed the place back. Very sporting is Simon, as always. We expect nothing less from Simon, though. He is certainly a sportsman and likes to portray those attitudes out on the racing surface. Dan Mould leads after 5 laps here at Donington Park. Ronan Doherty second, Oscar Mangan in third, Jordan Kelly in fourth, with Dylan McClemens in fifth. And it's McClemens who we are looking at now, with Robbie Callahan right behind here in fifth position. In sixth position, I should say. Brandon McCaughan then in seventh, and this is the little squabble for the final place in the top 5. Remember, these finishing positions decide the grid for the next race, and then the top 8 in race 2 decide our reverse order grid in race 3. But we will get to that later on. There is a lot of battling still remaining in this final 3 minutes at Donington.
Oh yeah, still plenty to play for. Dan has been exceptionally professional though, and what a debut for the man in RTA in the 62 car. I mean, don't know how many people have gone on debut, immediately stuck it on pole, and then stayed on pole for the rest of the opening race. So certainly no early nerves from the 52 cars. We look at Oscar Mangan chasing Ronan Doherty through, and these two guys, well, this will be a land for them, Evan. All of a sudden now, it's not just between them two, they have somebody else to target, and the 52 car is certainly putting his name in the hat for a potential championship, as Kevin Joyce once again slipping down the inside, but this time he goes side to side with Dave Collier, and unfortunately Kevin, 2 does not go into 1. Kevin loses out there. It was always going to be extremely risky for both of them to try and go through that corner. Kevin manages to recover, avoids a big accident, but a big incident but there between those two.
Yes, it is a big accident there. Disappointing for Kevin, who drops down the order. He was running a good race, starting in 15th. He's now 17th, I'm afraid. Dan Mould leading on debut. A fun fact, in the last 4 seasons of RTA, 3 have had a driver who won their first ever RTA race from pole. Dan Mould, Michael O'Donoghue and Oscar Mangan. So Oscar is being shown up by someone using his own tricks here in Donington. Finley Melvin is able to swoop past Danny Dempsey, so Danny's race is just plummeting even more here, and I think he'll be delighted to see the checkered flag when it comes out in 1 minute and 10 seconds time.
Yeah, I wonder did Danny get damaged? We saw that incident earlier on where he got a little bit of a touch in the back. I wonder was there a little bit more than what we see. Of course, the consistency of damage, I suppose, just like in real life, when you get a hit, you always take that risk of potentially there being more damage than initially suspected. So it didn't look like much, but Danny's certainly losing some pace. So I wondered, does it affect him? Brandon McGahan now is absolutely scrapping for his life to hold on to the P number 6. And you talked about Danny Dempsey waiting for the finish line, but I can tell you, Brandon will be praying that Dan crosses the finish line after the 10 minutes has run out, but I don't think so. I think we're going to get another lap here, so it's going to be another lap for Dan to hold on, but it's going to be another lap for the likes of Brandon McGahan and indeed Danny Dempsey, with Simon Hutchings just 1/10 of a second behind him, and Kevin Joyce just 2 seconds behind him. For he's dropped back now a little bit, Kevin Joyce. There's a lot of these guys have a lot of work to do in this final lap.
They do indeed, and Ronan Doherty was at first catching Dan Mould, set his fastest lap of the race on the 6th lap of this one, but Dan was 3/10 of a second quicker than Ronan on the last lap. Oscar Mangan 2/10 of a second quicker than Ronan on the last lap, so he's going to put the pressure on Doherty here on this final lap of heat number 1. And as they head through the old hairpin up Starkey's Bridge in towards McLean's, you can see Oscar Mangan just putting the pressure on Doherty. He'll need to be a little bit more closer for a brave lunge down the inside. We know Oscar's not afraid of a move down the inside, especially on a championship rival such as Ronan Doherty, but he's not close enough just yet. Dan Mould is doing enough in front, keeping that gap at 7/10 of a second. Mangan just looking to plant the throttle as early as possible, get into the slipstream around and Doherty in front, and now he has a little bit of a tow down towards the Foggy S's and in towards the Melbourne hairpin and the Melbourne loop, extended version of this circuit through the chicane. Who gets the better run? Doherty fairly smooth through there, but Mangan's got a flyer, and there is going to be a move potentially on here for the Honda driver on the Hyundai in front. He's going to look for it down the inside. Goes Oscar Mangan, last of the late breakers as they reach the apex of the hairpin. Ronan Doherty was almost shoved past, but it was nice and clean, no contact made. Doherty has the crucial inside line in towards the final corner. Oscar Mangan has to be very brave here, squeezes Doherty all the way to the apex, looks for the switchback. It's defended beautifully by Ronan Doherty. Dan Mould wins, but Doherty picking up a crucial 2 extra points for second place.
Yeah, 2 superb performances there, both by Dan Mould, by his start and finish. And also, look at that defensive work by Ronan Doherty, trusting that despite knowing that Oscar was going to dive down the inside of the Melbourne hairpin, he would more than likely have the inside line going into the final hairpin coming back around, and just easing Oscar out of the way, nothing too aggressive, but just making sure that he opens up the corner for himself and doesn't hamstring himself heading down the main straight. And Brandon McGahan holding off Robbie Callahan in the end. So some great battling here already, very clean driving as well. Unfortunately, Peter McCann is the last of those who finished, managed to catch up with Diarmuid Toomey, but just not enough to overtake him despite that early pit stop. And Peter clearly has pace around here, but just an unfortunate end to his opening heat. But an opening heat, Evan, that has given us plenty of action and talking points heading into the rest of tonight.
Yeah, Dan Mould takes the win, but wasn't easy. He was kept on his toes throughout. Ronan Doherty with a neat defensive manoeuvre to keep Oscar Mangan behind. Jordan Kelly then in 4th, quiet race from him, but points nonetheless. Dylan McClemens in 5th, ahead of Brandon McCahan in 6th, and it was Callahan, McGoldrick, Stewart, Walsh, Amelia, Stack, Collier, Melvin, Dempsey, Joyce, Hutchings, Prunty, and it was Gandor, the other Dempsey, Emma Dempsey, in 20th position, and behind Emma was Phillipson, Nathan Sweeney, Diarmuid Toomey, and unfortunately those involved in incidents and moments throughout the race, such as Peter McCann, Sean McClemens, and Dara Halley. So McCann, a lot of work to do. His goal here, I would say, is to break into the top 10. a fantastic race for Peter, would be getting on that reverse grid.
Yeah, it's going to be a serious race if that's the case. But we're already set to go for race 2.
5 lights are on here at Donington as we go racing once again. It's another good launch from Dan Mould, but a great launch from Ronan Doherty, just as he got in heat number 1, and he's immediately putting the pressure on Mould, who goes round. They had tagged both off the circuit before we reach Redgate. Disaster for Dan Mould, who was looking for another clean run here in heat number 2. He's been tagged by Doherty. That is disastrous for the pair.
Yeah, absolutely disastrous. But look at Oscar Mangan now all of a sudden. 5/6 of a second now on Jordan Kelly. I'm sure we'll have a look at that replay in a second once we get through this opening lap, because Jamal Gandor had issues as well down the line, as did Dara Halley. Both of them just cannot buy a clean start in this series thus far. It's a big lunge there by Brandon McGahan, and he sends almost Sean McGoldrick around. That was not very tidy for McGahan, who again bumps against him. It's like bumper cars in that, yeah. And now he sends him round again. That sends Conor Melia around, and Conor is just unfortunately swept up in that absolute nonsense from Brandon McGahan. I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that, and I'm sure we will too as we go back over the course. We already have 2 replays lined up for you to have a look back on. But as it looks as we go forward, Sean McGoldrick surviving a double murder attempt from Brandon McGahan, who's back up into 6th position. I'm not sure whether we're looking at this incident or we're looking at the opening incident. So let's have a look at this. Dan Mould getting off the line, and Ronan Doherty going straight over to him straight away, and Dan trying to come back across him and cover him off, and the two just come together, and that's a really unfortunate one. But it is on Ronan there, I have to say. Ronan coming across, he is 2nd place, he is behind Dan Mould. Especially when you go on a race start, you know things are going to be tight, and it's an unfortunate one, but I do think the onus responsibility. Now, this is Brandon's 2nd murder attempt on Sean McGoldrick. He steamed it into the corner earlier on, and then McLean's sends it into him again, and it's a tight corner. Trying to get 2 there is very difficult, but once Sean went, Conor Mealy unfortunately was caught up in all the incident there. But I definitely think the stewards are going to have a look at Brandon McGahan's part in that one. But your thoughts, Evan, on the Ronan Doherty Dan Mould incident?
Yeah, I think it's Doherty's fault, unfortunately. Dan was just, he was pulling out to the outside of the circuit, to be fair, but I'm not really sure what Ronan was trying to do. There was contact made. He was probably looking for the inside line, maybe got a little bit distracted by Oscar Mangan's presence there as well, as Finlay Melvin decides he's going to channel his fellow countryman Colin McRae and go for a little bit of an adventure around the outside of the circuit. He'll drop to 14th place. But yeah, I think if the stewards have a look at it, I wouldn't be surprised if they judged it in favour of Dan Mould and blamed Ronan Doherty.
Speaking of going for an adventure, who's that in the background causing absolute chaos? That's Simon Hutchings, I think, is it? It is Simon Hutchings in the time. I think tidy AF isn't how I would describe how Simon took the foggy S's there. And unfortunately, Phil Upson is the one who got caught up in that. So a lot of drivers here getting caught up in other drivers' mistakes. But look at the man, not Finlay Melvin, but the man on the road in front of him. Is that a grey car with number 20 on it? It is. It is Peter McCann of the VRA Racing. And he has a gaggle of cars in front of him. But if some more nonsense happens, as we see Dave Collier being slightly pushed off the track by Daddy Dempsey, but I don't think there was any contact there. I think Dave just taking evasive action as they go down 2 wide through the greater curves now. And there's Sean McGoldrick once again being tagged from behind, and once again managing to save it. This time Tony Stack landing his front bumper on the Duff beer. Everyone wants to touch a Duff tonight. And I am glad I didn't make a mistake when I said that, because that could have gone very wrong. But Sean managing to survive. But look now at Peter McCann, very much, Evan, in the shake-up for potentially a reverse grid pole come the end of this evening.
Yeah, Peter McCann, a brilliant race start. He's up 11 positions already. Great start for Nathan Sweeney as well. He got 7 positions at the race start, so the young man with not much experience in sim racing has got a great launch. Someone who does have a lot of experience in sim racing but got a bad start was Keith Stewart. He lost 3 positions off the line, but look at this battle. Free abreast down towards the Melbourne hairpin, and it is Stack, Collier and McGoldrick involved in it as well. And McGoldrick once again getting a little nick on the outside of his Hyundai. This is really been a tough race for Sean McGoldrick, but he has saved it time and time again. In all honesty, one of the WRC teams needs to have a look at Sean McGoldrick, because he might be a hidden talent with the amount of times he's had to save the car. McCann pushes it all the way to the outside line. If there was ever a time Peter McCann wanted to seize the part in front of him, it was at the start of this race. That happened. He has a fighting chance for the reverse grid.
Yeah, and just to bear in mind, we do have a drive-through at 15x. I think Sean McGoldrick is very much, through his fault or not, a lot of those contacts look like they could potentially be 4x contacts. So it would be interesting to see how Sean approaches the rest of this race. We still have just under 10 minutes left in this heat 2. And, you know, Sean has already been tagged a couple of times. I will be interested to see what his X count is. He's obviously on our graphic here, it shows him as having 3x. That's for off tracks, but I suspect it may be higher than that. Now, here is a man who kind of Miley Cyrus himself into Sean earlier on. He's managed to hold on to 6th position, but he has Keith Stewart all over the back of him, and Keith's fan club will be hoping that he stays out of trouble here and that he can pass the 89 car. And Keith is going to try around the outside here to have an inside line for the final corner, but he's going to try to switch back here, but that's slightly cut off as well by Brandon. Good driving here by Brandon, in fairness to him. Good defensive work, even if his attacking work leaves something to be desired. But Oscar Mangan, 1.7 seconds up the road now ahead of Jordan Kelly. And you said about men in terms of Peter McCann who want to see the C's part in front of him. But Oscar Mangan, he's playing Moses this evening.
Yeah, Oscar would have, when he saw that at turn number 1, or before turn number 1 even, happy days, boys. Easy win on the cards, and it's looking like that so far. 1.7 ahead of Jordan Kelly. A 1.7 second lead over Jordan Kelly is never something to frown at. So impressive from Oscar Mangan so far. Here is Brandon McCaughan and Keith Stewart. McCaughan has the inside line. Stewart not going to work it all the way around the outside there. Knows if he goes for that, he will be cutting some grass on the exit. Danny Dempsey has a train right behind him. So 7.6 in front, and I think there is about 6 or 7 cars within a second behind Danny Dempsey. Doesn't hug the inside line through Starkey's Bridge. He's going to go for the inside line through McLean's, and that's going to allow Kevin Joyce to try and move around the outside, but Kevin needs to be careful not to chop off Kerryman. Tony Stackey just about pulls it out at the last minute, and Tony doesn't get spun round. That allows Peter McCann to go for the outside. McCann tries to brave it round the outside, not going to work through there. Tried to get on the throttle early, had to lift off potentially, felt the rears going and wasn't able to stick it out. So McCann going for some brave moves, all been perfectly executed up to this point. Doesn't want to get too eager and throw away what's been a really good race so far.
Yeah, it's been a great stuff so far for the 20, and as you say, for Tony Stack, I mean, his fellow Kerryman Michael Healy-Rae is indeed the Junior Minister for Forestry, so chopping off is something that Kerry people are learning an awful lot about. As Sean McGoldrick again gets tagged, this time by our race 1 winner, Dan Mould, who's worked his way back to 12th position after that horrendous start. There is so much contact between these, and this really is a lot more what we expect and what we anticipate in terms of the British Touring Car Championships. It's what a lot of people say they love about British Touring Cars, is this relentless, uncompromising racing as Dan sends it down the inside of Peter McCann, and McCann's going to allow that to happen. He's Ronan Doherty now on his back as these two try and work their way back through the grid, see if they can put themselves in for an outside chance of a feature race pole. Johnny Hollywood says, lads, did you eject your brains in between races? Because there was so much incident. Sean McGoldrick, unfortunately, in fairness to Sean, he's been caught up by a lot of it, and an awful lot of it isn't necessarily his fault. But here's Danny Dempsey now leading a train up towards McLean's, and Brandon McGaughan again is holding off Keith Stewart. This is a great battle here. Kevin Joyce now slips in ahead of Danny Dempsey as we go up over the top of the hill in this blind corner. Go too wide almost as Ronan Doherty slips in ahead of Tony Stack. and he's just doing his best to try and follow Dan Mould here, Evan.
Yes, Darty's bumper fell, or someone's bumper anyways, fell off heading down towards the old hairpin. Some neat moves from Dan Mould on Tony Stack and Peter McCann. Certainly not best before Heat 2. He's been impressive since that incident at turn number 1. Still about 5 minutes on the clock here, so plenty of time for action. And there goes Mould, dives into action, gets past Danny Dempsey on the inside. Danny didn't see it coming, still hasn't seen it coming, still not aware that Mould has passed him, and he's passed and attacking the car in front. That is Kevin Joyce in the Audi, so Dan Mould knows that he might be able to get the run on him on the straight. There goes McCann, dives down the inside of Sean McCulloch. His race has been sort of halted. His progress up the grid hasn't really gone much further past this battle, and that is because it has been tense, it's been close, it's been scrappy, and as you said, Kevin, exactly what we expected from a British Touring Car Championship.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to see as well. We want to see guys get tight and close, and certainly not be afraid, because looking at the F4s last season, a superb car, we saw some superb racing, but they are more delicate, whereas these are a little bit more rough and tumble. These cars allow you to be a little bit more aggressive in your overtaking, not necessarily bombing into the side of somebody, but certainly not afraid to get your elbows out, which is what we've seen from the majority of the grid today. And look at the distance now between Oscar Mangan and Jordan Kelly. We'll stay with Robbie Callahan here with his battle with Dylan McClemens, and to be fair to the younger McClemens brother, he is flying the flag here for DDR in this race, given brother Sean's unfortunate issues off the track, and indeed Ronan's on the track. He's managing to hold off Robbie Callahan, who's doing a great job of keeping drivers keen through this race. Of course, he had a great battle with Brandon McGahan in the last race. This time he's all over Dylan McClemens for a potential podium, but the gap, if you look at, just have a quick look at your timing screen, 3 seconds now between Oscar Mangan and Jordan Kelly. And let's not forget, Kelly is a multiple time RTA champion. He's not just some, guy who found himself luckily in second place at the moment. And look at who is in 8th position at the moment as we look at this gaggle heading down towards the final corner, and Sean McGoldrick still in amongst it there with Tony Stack. But Dan Mould finding himself in 9th position at the moment. Kevin Joyce in front of him. He has the lead at the moment. He covers off Mould, and that's a late move by Kevin Joyce. He's going to go back across track, and thankfully managing not to avoid to collect anybody. I don't know how he managed to do that, but Kevin very late in his defence there. We might have a quick look at that in a second and see how that turns out. But we are looking at the fight between McGahan and Stewart is trying to get in Brandon's mirrors as much as he possibly can. Now here comes the move. Here's the opportunity for Keith Stewart, and Stewart gets the job done. Superb work from Stewart. Excellent patience from the man in the 31 car, managing to just find the gap where he needs it. But all of a sudden now he's Brandon coming down the inside, and 2 won't go into 1 here, Evan. Brandon's going to have to hold off, I think.
Yes, Keith Stewart gets in front. Ballymoney versus Ballycastle. It's a proper Antrim Division 3. Scrap this if I've ever seen it, for 6th place. And Keith Stewart just ahead of Brandon McCahan, but here comes McCahan down the inside once again. Contact made at the apex, but McCahan still gets it stopped, still gets the move complete. Push to pass indeed here at Donington Park. Stewart's going to fight it back. This is a real raw racing scrap we are seeing here in Castle Donington. Once again, another nudge. They're both as bad as each other almost at this point. Stewart tries to bolt to the outside to get the run on Brandon McCahan down towards turn number 1. They both can't afford to lose their heads here, have to keep cool and control, even if the action on track is anything but. Here's this mad midfield fight once again, stretching all the way from Dan Mould in 8th position down to Dave Collier in 16th. They're almost within 1 second of another. McCann runs the wide line in towards turn number 1. Danny Dempsey doesn't dive down the inside, doesn't fall for it, as we are seeing Kevin Joyce bobble along the grass on the outside of turn 1 for the 2nd consecutive lap. It was a great move from Kevin to get past Dan Mould initially. He was the first man to actually overtake Dan tonight, but then potentially a late defensive manoeuvre into turn 1. That's what happened to him and sent them down to 14th place. Here comes Danny Dempsey looking for the move on Peter McCann up the hill in towards turn number 7. He's too far back for this one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, he's going to try and make it stick, but I don't think it's going to quite happen with Peter McCann. And you talked about that battle between, he's going to try over the inside now. That's a risky manoeuvre from Danny Dempsey, and he goes into the side of Peter McCann. and push the passes right. I'm not sure what the stewards will have to make of that, because Sean McGoldrick is in amongst it as well. Did he get a push from behind from Sean McGoldrick? I'm not sure, but McGoldrick now is going to go too wide with Tony Stack going into the foggy S's. Oh, Stack is just going to pull out of it last minute, as we still will have one more lap, I suspect, because Oscar Mangan's probably already crossed the line here to start our final lap in the 99 car. But you talked about this battle here, this where is it, coming around the corner behind us. You just see them in the picture. Danny Dempsey, big incident.
Oh no,
big incident. Danny Dempsey's off, Tony Stack is off, Peter McCann has managed to recover, and in amongst it all, Sean McGoldrick, the man who was caught up in all of the incident, he now finds himself benefiting from an incident, and a huge incident there in the Melbourne hairpin.
Yes, the timing tower flashing green and red. It was like a broken traffic light, and this is what caused it. Oh, initial contact made. Stack. Oh no. Oh, that's grim in terms of racing standards, and Collier was connected as McCann goes to go through. Oh, the stewards might take a grim look at that one. They might have a fairly strong stance there, because that was not the best manoeuvre. As Dan Mould almost being collected here. Is that Emma Dempsey who's somehow battling with Dan Mould now? So Dan's race really falling by the wayside because of that incident. And the number 17 of Emma Dempsey looking to try and make the move, but dominance from this man in front. And it is dominance that he is used to in his sim racing career. It's not usually handed to him on a plate the way it was served by Ronan Doherty and Dan Mould in heat number 2. The number 99 rounds the final corner, and it will be his 3rd win of the season, his first here at Donington Park in RTA, and he will start 8th for heat number 3, but crucially pick up 30 points for heat number 2. Jordan Kelly comes home in 2nd. Dylan McClemens comes home in 3rd by the skin of his teeth. Robbie Callahan and Evan Walsh right behind. Here comes Peter McCann looking to defend from Dave Collier. It is the conclusion of what has been a dramatic and potentially controversial fight for the final positions in the top 10. McCann seems to be ahead for Collier, seems to be ahead of Collier for now.
Yeah, and that battle between Brandon McGahan and Keith Stewart, it looks like it's coming to its conclusion. It looks like McGahan's going to get the better of it. Peter McCann just taking the inside line and pushing out Dave Collier. Touched Collier, of course, in the course of that chaos in the last lap, but Peter McCann crossing the line, didn't quite get a top 8 finish, but a superb run from the number 20 car nonetheless. And you talked about that McGahan and Stewart battle. Well, we certainly saw scenes similar to what we've seen in the past in the Ulster Club Football Championship, and I suspect if there wasn't a 6-foot high perimeter fence separating the drivers and the crowd, we would have seen a few schleps being thrown in as well from those watching on if it was the Ulster Football Championship. But Danny Dempsey, what a disappointment for him. Danny running a superb race and right in amongst it until that final instant, caught out through absolutely no fault of his own in that instant between Kevin Joyce and I think, was it Simon Hutchings? I don't want to call out the wrong person, but the two of them involved, I think, in that instant, in Kevin skidding across the track and slamming into the side of Danny Dempsey. The stewards are going to be very, very busy right from the get-go. But it is Oscar Mangan who manages to keep his head in amongst the madness and scores a win. And in 2nd place, Evan, is Jordan Kelly.
It was indeed bold of you to assume we'd get anything that entertaining in the Ulster Football Championship. Dylan McClemens comes home in 3rd, Robbie Callahan in 4th, Evan Walsh in 5th, and it is Brandon McCaughan in 6th, Keith Stewart in 7th, Ronan Doherty in 8th, and it was Peter McCann in 9th, followed by Dave Collier in 10th. Then to run through the remaining places, it is Tooby, Mould, Dempsey, Gandor, Melia, Hutchings, Upson, McGoldrick, Danny Dempsey. Kevin Joyce then in 20th position. And behind Kevin Joyce is Finley Melvin, Tony Stack, Nathan Sweeney, David Prunty, Dara Halley, and unfortunately no running from Sean McClemens. Let's hear from your race winner then, Oscar Mangan. Oscar, congratulations. It is your 3rd win of the season, 1st win of the evening, but you didn't really have to work too hard to get past the 2 cars who started in front of you.
Yeah, it was a bit, I think it was a bit like Moses parting the sea there in front of me. So, yeah, I don't know. The lads just, I think, got stuck together and went off and to the left, and then it just sort of was easy enough from there. Was a bit scrappy with just trying to not get off track 'cause it's really tough in that chicane, and just kind of took it handy then, and was kind of looking out on the standings to see would Dan and Ronan get the reverse grid, and I see Ronan got it, so I'd say very tough to catch him in this third race, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, just speaking of Ronan, you and him have been almost dead even in every numerical metric so far this evening. Would you say, off the top of your head, he's probably your biggest championship rival this season?
Um, I'd say so, yeah. Or Dan. I think Dan's shown really good pace. I think he obviously missed the first round, but if he continues with the pace he's had this evening, then I think he's definitely another one. So the more the merrier, I'd say.
And then you mentioned race 3 briefly. You, of course, have to start 8 now. Even if the win might be a little bit out of your reach, what do you have to do to ensure a good points finish?
Just I think just not getting any trouble. I think the opening lap here is pretty scrappy. You can't really lean on these cars in the high speed on the first on the out lap on the second lap. So I think it's just going to be really about just making sure not we're running wide or getting run into, and just playing it easy, and then kind of settle in and go from there.
Oscar Mangan, best of luck for heat number 3, and if all goes well, we'll speak to you after.
Cheers, lads.
And now, second place with Kevin Galvin is Donegal's Jordan Kelly.
Yeah, still reading from Oscar's profile picture being him drinking a pint as baby. And just before we get to Jordan, a very quick clarification. You may have noticed that most people in the latter part of the top 10 moved up a place. That's because Sean McGoldrick had a penalty on board. He's been dropped down to 18th, which means everyone moves up a place, hence why Ronan is starting on reverse grid pole. Anyway, Jordan, thank you for bearing with me there as I was explaining some of those things. You normally prefer the single seaters, so a second place in a tin top is a pretty good result for you.
It is not Ollie, Jesus. I cannot get the time out of it at all. But it just doesn't seem to suit these tracks at all. But I thought I'd get a wee advantage with the start if I got a good quali, but it's not as good as it used to be. So I'm just gonna have to struggle along with it now.
Yeah, well, the final race starting in 7th, which obviously is a bit of a trickier position, but given some of the carnage that we saw in race 2, always an opportunity for you. Just describe what it's like to drive these, because we're seeing some, like, just to be in that second race more so than what the car feels like. Like, there's some fairly, I think it was described by one person on our chat as agricultural driving. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like the only way I can drive this car is to put the bias to the rear and nearly spun the car going into every corner, but it's not fun at the minute. But you never know. Whenever we get into the pack now, we'll play some battle.
All right, so Jordan, it's not long to go, but thank you very much for joining us as ever. Congratulations on your second place victory, and no doubt you're repping the Donegal jersey once more. Speaking of the Ulster Football Championship, as we have done in terms of some of the driving that's gone on.
Exactly. Thanks, Kevin.
So that's Jordan there. As we say, Evan, not as entertaining as the Ulster Football Championship, but definitely the same levels of aggression, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, weirdly we mention the Ulster Football Championship a lot in these broadcasts, and I don't really know why, but we do. It's more entertaining than the Leinster one, I suppose. Anyways, Ronan Doherty going to start on pole position for the reverse grid race. Keith Stewart alongside him. Keith will try and have a go into turn 1, I imagine, but race starts have not been Keith's best friend this season. Ronan, if he keeps it clean for the first few corners, you can't really see past him.
No, absolutely. It's shown such good pace thus far, and unfortunately, that incident between himself and Dan Mould did obviously impact on their race. We will see if penalty points will be applied for that. But certainly, I expect the stewards will crack down a little bit here. So after the second race, so hopefully a little bit more clean for this final feature race. But Ronan, yeah, he's one of the quickest on the timing tables every week, no matter what he drives. Has certainly, unlike Jordan, gotten to grips with this car, or at least Jordan's own feeling that he's gotten to grips more with this car. So Keith's going to have to get a really good start. But for Keith, I think for the 31 car, it's more a case of making sure that you don't throw it all away, especially with Brandon McGahan behind you. These two guys have had a nip and tuck battle in the last race, so both of them just have to keep the head as they head into this feature race.
Yes, absolutely. As the light's going to come on very soon as we get ready for the final heat race of tonight. It's the feature race. It is the reverse top 8 and 20 minutes of action to come, and for the final time we go racing here in Donington Park. Poor launch from Keith Stewart once again, just can't get the biting point and loses out to Brandon McCaughan and Evan Walsh in towards turn number 1. Doherty is cleaning away. He reaches the first corner this time. Evan Walsh dives down the inside of Brandon McCaughan in towards turn number 1, but not able to get past, and this car carcasses all over turn number 1. Connor Melia has spun round there, and I think we've had a big accident. That's Sean McGoldrick involved as well. Emma Dempsey unfortunately missing a front bumper. It's the big one at turn number 1.
Yeah, and look, there's some serious issues here with that opening set, because we've seen some massive accidents already right up and down the line. But Evan Walsh finds himself in 3rd place in the VRA number 42 car, the 2 VRA cars with Evan and Jordan back to back. And unfortunately for Keith Stewart, here's Oscar Mangan carving his way up, getting his way past Dylan McClemens into 6th position, followed closely by Dan Mullins. It's 2 of these guys taking no time in trying to make their way back through the grid, and it looks like Dylan's going to go side by side with Dan Mould here through the foggy S's. Will either of them pull out? No, they won't. It will go too wide. Can they make it stick? Yes, they can, and that is an example of how too wide can happen with Peter McCann skulking in the background. But there's a whole load of pulling out, and here we go. But look at Keith Stewart, a really disappointing start once again for the 31 car. Just talked about his needing to try and just keep in amongst it, and immediately from turn 1 he goes off, unfortunately destroying his chances of getting a podium in this final race.
The fan club will be having a vote of no confidence, unfortunately. It's a very disappointing start for Keith Stewart, and he is one of your biggest losers on the opening lap. Emma Dempsey losing 10, Dave Collier losing 14. Of course, with that incident, brilliant start for Finlay Melvin. This one legal. He's up 9 spots to 12. Danny Dempsey as well is up 8 positions. So the young Carter for Turn 3 Motorsport getting a great run. Here's Oscar Mangan looking to carve his way through the field, and he's going to try to get past Robbie Callahan here. It's going to be whoever's latest on the brakes, and it will be Oscar Mangan who's able to just jump in front. So Oscar, he's not going to let Ronan Doherty run away with this one, although he was very calm and sort of was giving us the idea in his pre-race interview that, Ronan has this one. He's not going to let Ronan get it that easy. Let's have a look at the replay then, down towards turn number 1. And you can see it all goes a little bit wrong at the back here. That's Sean McGoldrick who hits Emma Dempsey, and oh no, you can see it coming from a mile away. Big impact into the side of Melia. That's a disaster.
Yeah, that 26 car, I suspect, will be spending an extended period of time in front of the stewards. Yeah,
Wiggum will not be happy with that one.
No, he will not be happy with that one. Duffman will have to be retired, I think, because his face is all smashed in. Yeah, I think that look, Sean is a long time in RTA and a very competitive driver. I don't know what's happened to him tonight. Has he lost the head? I'm not sure, but like on the opening lap, you know, Emma Dempsey is a driver that he consistently finishes in front of in the series. A little bit of patience wouldn't go astray on the opening lap of a feature race. So I suspect Sean, a lot of what we've seen tonight will be seen quite dimly by the stewards, and Sean unfortunately was the victim last time around, but not so much this time around. Ivan Walsh leading Oscar Mangan. I know what the lads are having a bit of a chuckle here in the background. If you don't know what they're laughing about, just go have a look at the YouTube comments, because they're well worth looking at. But I'm not going to read it out on screen. Jordan is in 2nd place at the moment. But we talked about Oscar Mangan trying to make his way back up to Ronan Doherty, Evan. Oscar gapped Jordan a significant amount over the course of that second race, and we still have the distance of a second race, 15 minutes left. So Oscar is still very much in with a shout here, particularly if Ronan does make any mistake, as Brandon McGahan now goes for a move down the inside. Oh, that's much better from McGahan. We saw him try the same thing in race 2 against Keith Stewart, and Keith very aggressively shut the door as they continue to bang doors heading down. But it looks like Jordan will take the inside line for the final curb. And look at Dan Mould, he's up to 5th position and in ahead of Oscar Mangan. So Oscar's been jumped here by Dan, who's worked his way up through the field and into 5th position. He is well in with a shout at winning this championship.
Time we raced at Donington Park, heat number 3. Who won it? Brandon McCaughan, of course. He is performing well here, and it seems like over these longer formats he's able to just get into the groove. I know we haven't even done heat 1 format yet, but you get the point. Red Dan Mould getting ahead of Oscar Mangan. That is a crucial move here, because Oscar can no longer steamroll the cars in front. He has someone who is quicker than him in front. Fastest lap of the race belonging to Dan Mould with a 36.9. That's the only man in the 36s so far this race. There's Nathan Sweeney down the inside of Sean McGoldrick. Nathan having a strong showing in the B Championship today. It wasn't a great first week for Nathan in Brands Hatch, was sort of well off the pace, but Nathan with some good race starts is working his way through the field, and here comes Sean McGoldrick to the outside. He's not going to let that first corner incident plague him, and that's a beautiful around the outside by Sean McGoldrick. Say what you want about lap number 1, but that is well executed and a good move by Sean. And that demotes Nathan Sweeney back down to 17th. Here we go. Here's Dan Mould down the inside of Evan Walsh, and Dan very late on the brakes, knows these TCR cars like the back of his hand, and gets ahead of Evan Walsh immediately. Takes the defensive line, knows there's not much of a route around that outside corner, and Walsh still went for it. That puts Mangan on the inside. I wonder, is he going to just lift off potentially and let Mangan through? I highly doubt it. Not the type of racer Evan Walsh is, but Oscar looking to make progress, similar to what Dan is doing.
Yeah, Dan is just really showing us why he is a massive potential championship winner. Simulation Racing League, Dan has already shown his pedigree in that, particularly in the Touring Car Championship. But yeah, certainly he is bringing that form over to us here in RTA, and we always love to see guests coming over and driving here in RTA, particularly when they make a real impression on the championship, and Dan is certainly doing that. Brandon McGaughan firmly in his sights, but he's going to have a job trying to overtake McGaughan, who is elbows out big time across these 3 races.
Yes, elbows out for Brandon, but I suppose that's what you got to be in these TCR cars. It's almost hit or be hit, really, here tonight in some aspects, and Brandon has taken that approach, maybe bumped it up 1 or 2 notches, and now he's battling and goes for the defensive move on Dan. Couldn't make that defensive move because Dan already had the inside of his Hyundai on the inside of Brandon, but just backed out of it, and Walsh actually hits the back and looking for the inside of the 62 versus 42 in the battle for 4th and 5th. It's Evan Walsh, you can see there with the Montello Park logos all over his car, versus Dan Mould with the SRL ones. It is red versus green, not quite a roulette table, fairly close in the battle for 4th. Robbie Callaghan, though, in all of this, is looking right behind Evan Walsh in the tricolour. You know his livery, it stands out across the grid, goes for the outside in towards Redgate. This is an ambitious move from Robbie Callaghan, and one he won't be able to pull off on this occasion.
No, not quite, unfortunately, but Robbie's doing an absolutely superb job here. He's really getting to grips with this car early, and he was good in the F4s as well. But in fairness to Robbie, should I say, he's certainly making himself extremely competitive and making life very difficult for Oscar Mangan here. We look at the back of Evan Walsh as Oscar's going to try and make a move stick, but he's not going to be able to get it done. He just can't get the move done, and this is very frustrating for Oscar, seeing Ronan way up the road and Dan get past him. Having had such a good second race, it certainly would be frustrating for Oscar, but he certainly gained more than he's lost over the course of these 2 races, so the 99 car just needs to remember that and stay patient as we head down through the foggy S's. But Ronan Darley leading, 2.2 is the gap between himself and Jordan Kelly, and Jordan, despite saying that he isn't quite getting to grips with the car, he's certainly doing an excellent job he started in the 7th position, remind you, so doing an excellent job of making his way back up through the grid and holding on to that second place at the moment.
Yeah, the only thing, folks, remember at home is Jordan Kelly not quite getting to grips with the car, is still a second of a lap quicker than our optimum time. So, with a pinch of salt slightly, you can take that one. Jordan Kelly still performing excellently, and it is the old RTA championship rivals of Ronan Doherty and Jordan Kelly who are 1 and 2 in this one, with Brandon McCaughan in third, who always excels in Heat 3 around Donington Park. He has Dan Moll chasing him, but Dan Moll has Evan Walsh right behind him. And Evan Walsh, if he didn't win it last week, is certainly having a driver of the day performance here today. Make sure to get your votes in, folks. Coming up to the end of this race, and we can pick a winner after action concludes. Callahan looking to maybe change your minds, change your ballot with a move on Evan Walsh. Oscar Mangan looking to demote Robbie Callahan back down to 7th place. Not going to be able to go for it there. Robbie, defence to the inside line, slight slide through the corner. That has lost him a lot of time. And now Oscar Mangan, is he going to go for the double whammy up the hill? This is brave, brave stuff. And it really tests you in towards the right-hander of Coppice. Oscar Mangan shows why he is rated numero uno in Ireland with a brave move down the inside. Evan Walsh shows why he might be the next future big hotshot of RTA, and defends from Oscar Mangan in towards the chicane. Wow, that is very impressive, but Walsh runs wide, took too much speed. It invites Oscar Mangan back down the inside. Honda versus Honda as we reach the Melbourne Loop. Robbie Callahan looking for the position as well, tucked into the slipstream of Oscar Mangan. He won't get much of it towards the final corner, and is on, of course, that horrible outside line. Keep an eye on Keith Stewart behind as well. Still side by side. Contact at the apex of the corner. Stewart now looks for the inside. You can't keep up with this. This is brilliant racing.
Yeah, it's absolutely superb racing altogether. DOTD can mean a number of things. You can only have a look at our YouTube comments to know that. I think Emma Dempsey would have nominated Sean McGoldrick for DOTD, but for an altogether different meaning. But certainly in our terms of it, in terms of driver of the day, Evan Walsh is doing an absolutely stellar job there. But Dan Mould as an opening candidate coming back into 4th position. Now, he is a little bit stuck. I thought he might give Brandon a bit more of a rattle, but he is getting a little bit stuck. Also, let's not forget Jordan Kelly, 2 second-place finishes in the last 2 races. Superb stuff from him as well. So, plenty of candidates out there for driver of the day. Do put your nomination in the YouTube comments, and we'll read them out as the race goes on.
Yes, absolutely. Here is Kevin Joyce, who's looking for a little bit of a comeback after his disastrous Heat 2. Gets past Dara Halley. Is Dara that's in the Halfords livery, or is that Nate Sweeney? Could be Nate. Let's have a look here as it comes past.
It is Dara.
No, it's Nate Sweeney. Someone has Halfords all over the side of their car. I thought it would have been nice for Halley, given his name's Halley Halfords. There's a joke somewhere, a terrible joke that only myself and yourself could make, Kevin. So obviously, not everyone has that much brain power.
Don't drag me down into it. You made the joke.
Down the inside of Evan Walsh. Kevin, you have some disastrous jokes on these live streams. Don't back down from them now. We embrace them, we enjoy them, and we are enjoying this fight between Oscar Mangan, Evan Walsh, Robbie Callahan and Keith Stewart. Look at Dylan McClemens looking to get involved as well. Dylan, of course, who's down in 9th position in this race for whatever reason. Down 3 places from his starting grid spot. And look at Robbie Callahan trying it. Wasn't able to get it done. Mangan trying the long way around the outside here. And Evan Walsh once again defends. The Walsh train, arguably more famous in the Trilly train now. We had it twice last week in Brands Hatch. We have it again entering the final 5 minutes here in Donington Park.
Yeah, there's only one train stops a week in Clonmel, and I think Evan Walsh is on it every single week because he is leading this one at the moment as Oscar desperately tries to get past him. You can see the desperation from the 99 car to try and make every single position as he can. He's going to try and go up the inside here, up and over the hill. He did try this move before, but Evan closes him off. There's a little bit of contact. Little bit of a push to pass there, I think it's fair to say, from the 99 car, but they did come together. Evan didn't give him a huge amount of space either as he opens up the door now a little bit more for Robbie Callahan to go through in the Motorsport.ie tri-coloured livery as Keith Stewart. Whatever happened to Keith in the opening round? Remember, he started this race in 2nd position, back up to 7 at the moment, but he's battling with Evan. Walsh is going to have to pull out of that one. Evan had the overspeed, and I think Robbie's done what Evan did last time around, going too fast through the chicane. And Robbie, I don't think he's going to have to give that back at some point, is Robbie? As Keith goes out the inside, but he's made a mess of it. He tags the back of Evan Walsh, and unfortunately for Evan, sent off into the extremities of the Melbourne hairpin, and that is desperately disappointing for Evan Walsh. A bit of a botched move there from Keith Stewart. Tried to move down the inside, but left it way too late.
Yeah, not a good move from Keith Stewart. Disappointing as he hits the back of Evan Walsh. Here's McCaughan and Mould finally fighting. As Dan Mould trying to fling it around the outside here, and Brandon McCaughan has to use all of the blue and white curb on the exit of the first corner, and they'll be side by side heading down towards the old hairpin. I think Dan Mould just has to run here, Brandon. He does. There's not going to be much Brandon can do unless he's very late in the brakes, which of course he is. Of course he is. What else would he be? In towards the hairpin. Runs very wide on the grass, but you gotta rate the commitment at this point from Brandon McCaughan. Dan Mould has the outside, soon to become inside, heading in towards McLean's. That can almost be considered job done. It depends on his exit here. No, Brandon's got a good exit, and Dan sits in the middle of the racetrack. There's not much room to manoeuvre on the asphalt for Brandon McCaughan. He might have to get brave in towards the Melbourne Loop like Keith Stewart did on the last lap. Just maybe get it that tad bit better than Keith Stewart did. Has the run in towards the foggy S's, doesn't go for it into the foggy S's. That's the smarter decision from McCaughan. Get a good run through the chicane and get your line down in towards the hairpin. He's a little bit far back though, and I think a move would be fairly rash. It would. McCaughan stays behind. Oh, runs on. Big mistake for Brandon McCaughan. Does he have an issue? He was horribly slow through there, but doesn't lose another place.
Yeah, you know, when you look at Dan, you can understand why he parked it in the middle of the road, because you give Brandon McGahan an inch and he will absolutely take a mile. And I think he went almost a mile off track there, down through the old hairpin. He was never making that corner, was Brandon McGahan, but he was absolutely intended to try and stick in it. And Dan now, like, he does have to think about his overall championship standings given tonight, and a good for Mould in third position at the moment, the 62 car, that he did manage to stay out of trouble there, because Brandon has been in all kinds of fights this evening, and sometimes a level head is what you need, especially as you tick down towards your final race of the evening. Now, Simon Hutchings and Kevin Joyce. Kevin, obviously part of that, both of these guys part of that opening lap disaster, so trying to make back some time. But yeah, the top three, Ronan Doherty, Jordan Kelly, Dan Mould, all excellent shouts for driver of the day. And unfortunately for this man in the 31 Pure Motorsport car, you would love to have seen him take a podium and get driver of the day, but it's just those race starts have really done Keith Stewart in that 31 car.
Yeah, pace is there for Keith. If you look at the lap times, 37.9 on the last lap for Keith Stewart. Dylan McClemens, who's now fighting with him, was a 38.0, so he's not struggling in terms of lap time. Just needs to nail the launch, and then he's good as gold. He'll get some big results here in RTA. So that's a positive leaving Donington for Keith Stewart. Points leaving Donington for Keith Stewart. He'd like more than Dylan McClemens and wants to keep him behind. Peter McCann as well is like a shark lurking in the water right behind this battle. So keep an eye on him as we enter the final two laps of this race. Ronan Doherty leads by 2.9, and then Jordan Kelly leads Dan Mould by 3.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very spread out top three for what we're used to in RTA. But at least we do have that fight that continues, although I do think that Dan is starting to gap Brandon now. He was doing his best to try and hold on to Dan, but it just wasn't quite happening, and now he may fall into the touches of Oscar Mangan, although I think time may be on Brandon McGahan's side. Let's have a look down through the standings. This is the best of the battling we're seeing thus far, and unusually in RTA circumstances, there are quite a bit of a gap between all those to front. So Keith Stewart ahead of Dylan McClemens and ahead of Peter McCann. I think once Evan was a little bit shunted off track there, it kind of opened up the floodgates for the faster cars to try and open up that gap. But Dylan on the back of Keith Stewart, trying to put a bit of pressure on the 31 car. We will have one more lap here to finish us off at Donington Park in what's been a really, really incident-filled, for good and for bad, round of the British Touring Car Championship season. And it's fair to say, Evan, like, this is kind of what we expect, not necessarily exactly what we want, but we do want to see good rough and tumble action. That's why we like these cars, and that's why we like this series, because it encourages that aggressive racing style that for good or bad, brings plenty for us to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Once we get rid of the debris graveyards at turn number 1 that seem to be being left from big incidents, we've nailed British touring cars. And the Motorsport.ie RTA BTCC, which is an absolute mouthful, but it has been enjoyed so far, and it's only going to get better once we get to some of the more big open circuits where we're getting our 3, 4, potentially even 5 wides. But that is all to come. So far this evening, though, and to round out this evening, it has been a fabulous performance by Ronan Doherty. He was given the gift of pole position in the reverse top 8 race, which is very rare and hard to come by. So when you get given that gift, you grab it with both hands and you absolutely make the most of it. And Ronan Doherty will be doing so. It'll be 13 points here in heat number 3. There may be a penalty coming for that incident with Dan Mould at the start of heat number 2, but Doherty is really giving himself a championship challenge. Last season, he only won 3 races across the course of the season. We're on round number 2, and he is about to take his second, heading for the final corners, but there's still battles out on track. Keith Stewart defending from the other Team DDR car still in the race of Dylan McClemens, and you can see they're side by side for 4th as well, and Oscar Mangan sees Doherty enter the final corner and knows he's going to be the race winner. Mangan knows for championship stake, needs every point possible. The boy from Dunloy wins once again in Donington Park in RTA. It's a fabulous race win for Ronan Doherty. Jordan Kelly, cracking performance in second. Oscar Mangan was not able to get past Brandon McCaughan. Dylan McClemens is able to get past Keith Stewart, nudges him through the final corner. Stewart has to enter the pit lane. Might have got a drive through for contact. Disastrous ending to this evening for Keith Stewart. Not too sure he'll be happy with Dylan McClemens in that one, but that's for the stewards to discuss. It is Doherty, Kelly, Mould, McCaughan, Mangan, your top 5.
Yeah, and Danny Dempsey finishing in the top 10 as well. So great drive from him, given what he has been through so far this evening. Good work from Brandon McCaughan to hold off Oscar Mangan, because Oscar's previous lap was his quickest, a 136.8. Only 2 of these drivers in the 36s. That is Dan Mould in 3rd position, and indeed Oscar in 5th. Ronan winning. So from what we thought we had, certainly the story of tonight, we thought we had a 2-way battle for the championship, but Evan, given the performance from the 62 car tonight, up 9 places in this feature race, certainly shows that we have a 3-way battle for this championship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when Wayne Douglas comes back, we could have 4, because remember how quick he was in round number 1. Of course, we do have a drop round, so Dan will get his drop from round number 1. Wayne will get it for tonight, and then whatever happens to Ronan and Jordan, we'll wait and see. Jordan can, of course, be considered for the championship as well. Nathan Sweeney comes home in 21st. The number beside his name on the timing tower, I don't think represents how successful it was for Nathan Sweeney, because the pace was there in the Beat Championship. Ronan Doherty, your race winner. Jordan Kelly in 2nd. Dan Mould then in 3rd, Brandon McCaughan in 4th, Oscar Mangan in 5th, Robbie Callahan in 6th, Dylan McClemens in 7th, and Peter McCann in 8th, Evan Walsh in 9th, with Danny Dempsey in 10th position. Then it was Simon Hutchings, Dara Halley, Finley Melvin. Finley, we didn't really speak much of tonight, but he gained 7 positions in that final heat and got a very strong result in 13th. Then it was Sean McGalder, Kevin Joyce, Conor Melia, Tony Snack, Phil Upson, Keith Stewart, and Dave Collier running at the top 20. Then it was Nathan Sweeney, Emma Dempsey, David Prunty, Dermot Toomey, Jamal Gandor, and of course, not entering Sean McClellan. Sean, we hope you get well soon. But let's hear from the other Team DDR driver, Ronan Doherty, after that race win. Ronan, congratulations. It is another race win this season, and having pole for the reverse top 8, it was quite a nice treat for you.
Yeah, sort of worked out. I took down at the start of the second race, completely unintentional. I was just trying to hold him to the inside, and then made contact, and he came across the front of my car, and then I literally dropped right to the very back of the grid to let him by again, and pushed him through. And then he was in reverse grid pole, but I think he got too many off tracks or something, and he had to take a drive through. So yeah, it worked out for me, and I didn't really have to push at all in the last race. I could just sort of bring it home.
Yeah, just on the incident that started heat number 2, yourself and Dan, of course, talk us through it from your perspective, because it was an intriguing one on the stream.
Yeah, I got a good start, so I was up alongside him. Or at least I thought it was up alongside him. And I don't know. I thought the cars would do a bit of door mine or whatever. I was trying to hold him to the inside, which is quite a common move that you would use at the front. You know, you'd hold somebody on the inside and switch back out to the outside as far as you can to hold them to a tighter line. Because I knew how to get past him because he's better in this car than I am. And then I just seen zero X and just came flying across the windscreen, so I was holding him way too tight, obviously. So yeah, look, it happens. I apologised, and that's that. Like, look, same thing happened to me last week. I was leading the race, and Oscar hit me out of the lead as well. It happens sometimes, but yeah, what can you do? You just move on.
Moving on, so in terms of the championship, it has been one of your best starts to an RTA season in quite a while, and given you've been runner-up and champion in the previous 3 or 4 seasons, that's not bad going.
Yeah, and I'd say I'll probably get a penalty for that incident. I probably should have reported Oscar for that one last week tactically for the championship, but I didn't. That'll be a nice guy. But yeah, I'd say that incident will bring me back a bit, and the P8 finish I got in the second race. But I'm happy with my pace because Oscar obviously does VRS data packs and stuff for this car, and Dan's a specialist in this car, so I'm happy enough I can sort of cling on to their pace.
Ronan, congratulations on the win, and thank you as always for the interview.
Here's Skipper Country.
I knew you'd get something in at the end. It's going to be a familiar, or it's going to be a bit of deja vu for everyone on Gantry TV, because it's Jordan Kelly with Kevin Galvin.
Yeah, sorry, Jordan. I don't know why they paired us together again, but here I am again with Jordan Kelly. You say you're struggling with the car, but 2 P2 finishes. I mean, obviously race start was a bit of a nightmare for the rest of the grid behind you. Thankfully, you weren't caught up in it. But for a guy who, we have, as we said, a couple of TCR specialists on this grid. Oscar obviously does the packs for VRS, and we have Dan Mould as well, who's in the interview room, who will be joining us shortly for the first time. You're doing a good job of keeping pace with these lads.
The only thing that helped me there was the start. I literally gained like three places I think off the start with the car, so I think that just got me into a nice place. And then Evan kind of didn't fight me too hard, and then Brandon had the mistake, and I think I just got lucky that they defended against Dan and stuff. But I'll take it while I'm getting it with this car. But hopefully I'll be a wee bit better on pace and be able to catch up and challenge for a lead maybe in 1 or 2 of the races.
Yeah, do you reckon that like 2 second place finishes? What's your ambition for the championship? Do you think you have an outside chance of winning it, or what would be a good championship for you?
Obviously you want to. I don't think it's gonna be possible with the way this car is, because like I was on the limit that whole race and there was no way I was catching anybody there. So I think it's just a matter of taking the points where you get it, because I think I might have gained nearly the most points tonight. So it's a matter of being consistent. I think. Fingers
And
crossed.
yeah, of course, and even more importantly than today is Sunday, Clonus, Donegal and Monaghan. Can you get through to the semi-final?
I'd like to hope so, but we'll see how they get on. At least they demolished the area, which we can't complain about that one.
That's always good to get one over
Yeah.
the neighbours. Look, I thought we get a mention of the Ulster Football Championship in, given your loyalties. Jordan, congratulations, second place finish, another great finish for you. And look, if you can keep it as country as Ronan Doherty, you might have an opportunity to be back with us more often.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Jordan. As always, not only for joining me in the interview booth, but also providing the track details for those graphics, albeit late every week. Right, Evan, you are joined by a brand new man in the commentary booth, and our first opportunity to chat to somebody who's burst onto the scene, I think it's fair to say. Evan, you're joined by Dan Mould.
Absolutely. Dan, bit of a shock to RTA regulars last night in practice when you came in and set a couple of blistering laps. How did you find it out here in the Motorsport.ie British Touring Car Championship for the first time?
I've raced with the RTA boys before many years ago, and I think it was the F4s, and I enjoyed it back then. But I've been the night didn't really suit me back then, but the Tuesday nights now suit me, so I thought I'd get involved, and yeah, I've had a ball of an evening. One of the races didn't go to plan, but it's what happens in touring car. The fight back was enjoyable. Not particularly a fan of Donington. I'll prefer Donny National. Donington GP I just never seem to get that chicane right. I think I've got like 3 or 4 slowdowns during the whole evening, maybe more. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the scrapping. It's what the TCRs are about. It's what I love about them. Yeah, it's really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you'd be a little bit more familiar with some of these circuits maybe than some of the lads over the pond. In terms of circuits that you are looking forward to on this calendar season, what do we think?
Thruxton is a track that I've just fallen in love with. It's now become probably my favourite track on the service, especially in the TCR. And like I say, the calendar is one of the reasons why I joined. I love the British tracks. I can't. To be fair, now I missed last week. I can't even remember what tracks are on here. I just know it's a good selection of tracks, and I'm just looking forward to them all. Where are we next week? Thuxton next week. Snatterton, yeah, Snatterton, yeah, I enjoy that. Alton is local to me, about 40 minutes away. Always loved Alton, and yeah, they're all good tracks. So I'm looking forward to them all. I'm looking forward to getting involved, and like I said, the lads who are in this series are just a good bunch of lads. You know, they take it serious, but not too serious, and that's what I'm after.
Yeah, in terms of the championship, is it a goal of yours to go on and win it then?
I'll always try and win. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie and say no. I am gonna try my best to win it. It's gonna be tough. I believe there's a drop round. Is that correct? So
Yes, there is.
I think I've got a good chance maybe. Missing a fast driver tonight, Wayne Douglas, who I get on with quite well. It's always fun to race against Wayne, and obviously I've raced against Oliver and Ronan tonight, and I'm still new to names. Jordan, is it, who finished second in that race just?
Yes.
Yeah, all seem like good drivers. Not TCR drivers like myself, but clearly can hold their own in this car. So I'm sure it's going to be a really interesting season.
Well, Dan, great to chat to you. And before you leave us, we have a little bit of news for you. You have been voted tonight's Gantry TV Driver of the Day. So congratulations. Not a bad way to make an impact on the series.
Oh, thank you. Thank you everyone who voted. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So great to hear from Dan Mould on his impressive evening tonight at the RTA British Touring Car Championship. Kevin certainly seems to be enjoying his brief time here. Well, brief return here so far.
Yeah, and it seems like that he may join us for future series now that the night seems to suit him. It's great to hear him speaking in such glowing circumstances about so many of the drivers on here. He name-checked Wayne Douglas and also, of course, Ronan and some of the other lads as well. So, look, there's a great bond there going back Fado in real life between the karting scene and the junior formula scene in Britain and that in Ireland. They come over here and they race in Mondello and Nuts Corners and Kirkstown, and we go over there and we race in the likes of Brands Hatch and Donington and that. So it's a great relationship that we have, and it's great to see that translate into virtual racing as well. So we love to see the likes of Simon Hutchings and Dan Mould and Finlay Melvin, of course, from 3 different countries in the United Kingdom, come over here and give us a bit of competition and give us something a bit different in the series. So I'm delighted to see Dan amongst it, and he's obviously rapid in these cars. So looking forward to seeing the impact he's going to make on this series. And obviously we love commentating on the likes of Ronan and Jordan and Jason and those kinds, but it's always great to see some fresh blood as well and see somebody new at the top of the timing table. And certainly Dan has shown us that he's more than capable of staying up there for the rest of the season and hopefully for seasons to come.
Yes. Well, Jason, we don't get too bored of because he's here very sporadically these days. But yeah, it's great to see new names. It is. We love the lads who are here week in, week out, with seeing these new names competing and then seeing the regulars compete with them is absolutely fantastic. Next week, Snetterton 300, then it's off to Thruxton, Alton Park, Knockhill, Silverstone, and Brands Hatch. And Kevin, I think we owe our viewers at Gantry TV a big thank you for tuning in tonight. It was great to see such high numbers enjoying the action.
Yeah, top numbers again, and it's you can even just tell by the comments that the more and more we go on, and the more people enjoy it. So thank you so much for everybody's commentaries. Great to see some of the drivers jumping in as well. We had Peter McCann at the beginning. We've had Sean join us despite his stomach bug. Of course, Evan Walsh is a regular joiner, as is of course. Jordan Kelly as well, and Danny as well coming in on P10. So congratulations to him. Jamal Gandor as well. Thanks for getting in touch. So thanks to everybody. We'll be here obviously next week for Thruxton, or sorry, for Snetterton, should I say, the 22nd of April for our third round of the season. And 3 seems to be the magic number as we have a 3-way fight for this championship. Join us next week. Have a good weekend of it. Enjoy your week. Congratulations, of course, to Alex Dunn, who we name-checked earlier, and indeed Rory McIlroy on his win over the weekend. A fantastic weekend for Irish sport. But if you are interested, of course, Alex raced with us before, virtually. So if you want to see the next big talent coming through, this is where you need to see it. Gantry TV, next Tuesday, 22nd at 9 p.m. for the third round of the Motorsport.ie RTA British Touring Car Championship. But until then, slán go fóill.